This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
All right, Danny West is with us from 24/7 Sports, recruiting expert extraordinaire. It's been a minute or so. Danny, how you been?
I'm good, buddy. Appreciate you having me back on. It's been a little while, but always fun to jump on with you. What's up?
You got that right. Well, I got to ask your opinion of the situation at quarterback for Arkansas. I feel if KJ practices a little bit on Wednesday, maybe he's good to go Saturday. I'm not quite sure of this, but what's your sense of the strengths of the backups right now? And I know it's, Fortin is number 2 and Malik is number 3. I still kind of view them as 2A and 2B because I think they would both get in the game. But what is your sense of what Fortin does well compared to what Hornsby does well, and do they complement each other?
Well, we saw a really small sample size of Fortin last week, and I thought he looked comfortable. At that point of the game, obviously it's kind of gotten away from you a little bit, so a little bit different dynamic there. Outside of that, I mean, it's easy to jump into the statistics, and they're not overwhelmingly positive for him, throughout his career. But I do think there are some things to like. He's obviously mature. He's been under the big lights, and I think you could feel good about that. And with the mixture of Malik and what he brings to the table as a runner, and shoot, I still kind of think his day is coming where he's going to surprise people with his arm. We haven't seen that yet. It always seemed like as fast as Malik might be moving, the game was still moving a little bit fast for him too, to this point so far. So, I'm taking a long way around it here. I don't love the vibe. If you don't have KJ Jefferson, I kind of go back to the preseason and my thoughts on the, kind of making predictions and whatnot. And I always went back to, if you keep the 2 number ones healthy, I think they're going to be in really good shape. And sure enough, we know what happened with Jalen in the first game, and now you are, week 6, and you're talking about KJ potentially being out too. I mean, you look at that, and that in itself, that alone is enough to not like the vibe right now. Yeah.
And Slusher's injury has mucked up an already, shaky situation going on at secondary. What did you make of Sam Mbake moving to cornerback for the time being? I'll play the soundbite later from Sam Pittman, but he did say that it might be a temporary move. He might go back to receiver in spring. I saw that he'd been offered as a defensive back by some other schools, but obviously he came to Arkansas to be a receiver. What'd you think of this move? Sam Pittman already said he's number 2 at the position just by switching positions.
Yeah, when you have one by default like that, you kind of have to question it a little bit. You're talking about a true freshman wide receiver who was buried on the depth chart on offense, and I mean it is what it is, man. I mean, you got to try somebody else. I remember standing outside the stadium. I told this story earlier this week, but last Saturday, standing outside waiting on the media gate to open, I watched guys like Anthony Brown and Jalen Lewis walk up the hill there, and you start to wonder, man, maybe is it time to give some of these younger guys a shot? And I certainly didn't expect that to happen, with an offensive player jumping over. But at some point, man, you're kind of out of options. You're willing to try anything. So I want to say I like Mbake. He's huge. He's physical. And more power to him, man. I hope it works out for him. But, just on the surface of it, I'm not in love with it, to be honest with you.
And Mbake hasn't really gotten on the field as a receiver yet. He's been pretty good in situations on special teams. We haven't seen Quincy McAdoo.
Yeah, we just don't know. It's the unknown of it that's scary. Right. I mean, you're going, sorry to cut you off, but you're playing Mike Leach here. It's not a tune-up game by any stretch where you can just throw somebody out there and see what happens. Like, these are some of those back shoulder throws they're going to throw at you this week. They don't miss. And Arkansas has kind of struggled with some of that already, one-on-one situations, and even after the catch, trying to tackle a guy. Just it's sketchy, man. That's really tough. That's a tough ask for them to expect anybody to jump in there who hasn't done it, with any for any length of time.
Are you at the point with the struggles of tackling specifically? I'm not going to say the coverage, with tackling specifically, that right now this is what Arkansas's defense is. I mean, you're almost halfway through the season. It's 5 games in, And, you know, I mean, even Pittman yesterday on the coaches show refers to, I think I say something about coverage and tackling every week on the show. So, I mean, at some point you'd love for it to improve, but maybe this is what this defense is right now and might be for the rest of the season, unfortunately.
I'm with you on that. I think there's a large enough sample size that, you know, you kind of are what you are to this point. Now you can get better, obviously, and I think they've got to they need to keep working on it, and I'm sure they are, but so much of it, and I think it was on your show maybe earlier this week, you guys were talking about some of the tackling issues, and I think there is something to it where when you're asking guys to play more man coverage, you find yourself in a lot more situations, whereas last year, you know, you're dropping 8 quite a bit, and the year before that, too, you saw a lot of gang tackling and so forth. So maybe you get back to that this week. It's obviously something that's worked against Mike Leach the first 2 years there. So, I would fully expect that. And then how much pressure can you get out of that still if you're only bringing 3 guys? You know, Arkansas obviously has come a long way in their ability to get to the passer, but that really needs to be on point this week because that guy, you know, he gets it out so fast, you just about can't touch him, so you might as well drop.
Mm-hmm. Now, Danny, you talk about the problems with the secondary, with even Mbake, you know, probably may actually see some action his first week on the defensive side. So that secondary and the defensive backs are a big question mark for this team. Tell me about the 4-star cornerback, Jalen Thompson, who the Razorbacks gave an offer to earlier this week. Is he somebody that could come in and make an impact right away?
Yeah, probably if they could get him. You know, the problem is trying to get him. He's out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Now, he's a 2024, so he's only a junior in high school right now. But, shoot, you'd almost take him, too, if you could get him on the bus this week. But, yeah, 6 foot, about 175. I do think Tennessee, you know, obviously having a lot of success over there right now. It's going to be easier for them to keep some of those guys at home. A lot of guys have been leaving the state of Tennessee over the last, you know, half decade, maybe even 10 years now. I think that's going to change. You know, a guy like this, Volunteers certainly seem to be off in a really good starting position, and if I had to make a pick right now, you know, that would probably be my guess. He probably ends up staying at home, but you know, you've got some you've had a little bit of success in Tennessee. Most of that came under Coach Morris, and obviously Trey Knox still the one that everybody kind of associates with that area over there, and he's doing well. So. You never know. Trey's a popular guy. Maybe he's got some connections there. That is his hometown as well. He went to a different high school. But, time will tell. But right now, early indication would probably be Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of great things that happened on the field against Bama. But what about from the recruiting aspect of it? How many different recruits were there? And did anybody, you know, think that may have been on the fence after going and seeing the atmosphere, at least in the first quarter? You know, is kind of leaning more Razorback than you thought they were, you know, last Friday.
Yeah, potentially. You know, a lot of those 2024s, and I will say the best news coming out of that day, and we all saw how the game unfolded there in the first half. You get down 28-0, you start to wonder what are those kids thinking down there in the stands. You know, it's about 85 kids showed up. I think there were 24 4-stars. A handful of 5-stars, 5 or 6, depending on which ranking service you use. But, yeah, it was probably, to be honest with you, Drew, maybe it might be the GOAT in terms of, recruiting visit weekends that I've seen. A lot of those guys are going to be playing on Sunday at some point, and it was a staggering amount of talent. But you hit on something there, the atmosphere. Even though the game didn't go Arkansas's way, it seemed to me that every kid I talked to on Sunday and on into Monday, they had nothing but great things to say about the energy and the game day experience there in Fayetteville. So that was a positive. And, just the fact that so many of them showed up. You know, this dates back for several weeks. A lot of these guys were telling me, yeah, I'm coming, I'll be there. Well, you hear that a lot. And then game day rolls around. Well, I didn't have a ride. Well, you weren't planning on coming then, right? I mean, so it was good for the from the angle that a lot of these guys had been saying for months that they were going to show up, and they sure did. So, you know, there's no substitute for that. You can bring them in on spring officials, unofficials, you know, prospect days that we talk about in January. There's nothing that can beat that game day environment, and that was definitely one of the best I can recall in a while.
Danny, this is Clay Henry. And
hey, buddy.
You know You know what I look for. I like to see,
lineman.
uglies. Are they there? Are they coming?
Yeah.
Defensive tackle recruiting. Tell me how that is. And, I'm asking this cold turkey. I could have looked it up on your website and you would have told me. But to me, you've got to continue to build in that area. How's it going in that particular area, Danny?
Yeah, it's been I did a study on this a few months back, and I literally called it, "Why is it so hard to recruit defensive linemen?" Mm-hmm. And some of the stuff I found in that story was just wild, and there are several reasons. I won't take the time we probably don't have the time to get into all of them, but
we've got an hour and a half left on the show, Danny. Go ahead.
Well, a lot of it is, it's just geography. You don't produce very many here in the state compared to other southeast states. And, that's just for starters. They're much closer to home. Yeah, numbers. Just simple math is the biggest reason. But they're also, really rare people. It's not everybody's 6'3", 320, and can move in the SEC. So, there's a lot that goes into that. But to answer your question there, Clay, I think they're in on the right guys. It just, at some point, you've got to start landing those guys. They've been in the mix for a guy like Marcus Dill, 4-star kid out of Texas. They've been in the mix for Caden McDonald out of Georgia. He's been here a couple of times and has family connections. Both of those guys do. Well, if you're not producing them from within your state, right, you've got to kind of lean on some of those connections, and both of them have really strong ties to this area and the state, and you still might come up short on that. And that's, it's obviously you've got to fill that gap some way, and we've seen them do it with, try to bridge that gap, I should say, to with the transfer portal. And then you take a flyer on a guy like, go ahead.
I was going to say Billy Ray Smith. He's a Texas guy, but his dad played at Arkansas. So you got to get lucky every once in a while, right?
You got to get lucky, and they've got 2 committed right now. Both of them are huge. Both of them out of Georgia. Ian Jafrard, 6'6", 355. He's super athletic. He's only a 3-star, not a staggering offer list, but is a kid that came on his official. He's doing backflips and handstands. He's 6'6", 355. You sign a guy like that. And then Steven Johnson, 6'4", 325. Both of these guys are expected to enroll early, which I think is a really good thing. So, if you're not going to be able to get the 4- and 5-star types, you've got to get lucky at some point, and you've got to continue what you've started with the transfer portal there. Obviously, D-line, they've hit on quite a few of those. Let's give them credit. I think they've done a good job. But now you're in that cycle where you've got to depend on it each year. If you keep coming up short on your high school prospects, that's the only way to bridge the gap. So you got to continue to make solid evaluations and know what you're getting in the transfer market.
So, see, to me, listening to this stuff, Danny, is kind of like cherry cobbler with Yarnell's ice cream on top. Thank you very much.
You got it.
All right. Well, you had dessert right in the middle of the meal here, apparently. Dan, I want to ask about Malachi Singleton, quarterback, 4-star quarterback that's committed for next year. Is he someone that you think would enroll early? And if that's the case, okay, so he will enroll early. That's good news.
Be here in January. I just confirmed that last week.
All right, he'll kind of be baked a little bit into the offense once camp starts next year. Is that somebody that you see could compete for the job? I still think KJ is not going to be on the team next year. I think he heads to the NFL. Maybe he comes back. I don't know. But do you think Singleton is someone that can compete as a true freshman for playing time?
Well, he might have to. But, what my guess would be if KJ does get out of here, and I'm all for whatever KJ wants to do, whatever he thinks best. But, if he comes back, great. You take him all day and you move on and probably have another good year next year. But if not, man, I think that transfer portal is right back to where you belong. You've currently got, let's think about it, 2 scholarship quarterbacks. One of them's injured this week, and the other one has kind of been wide receiver in and out. So not sure what to think of that. And that's it. Malachi would be the only other scholarship guy on campus next year. It almost surprises me that they didn't take 2 in this year's class. We haven't seen that very often at Arkansas, 2 in one class. But I kind of thought maybe this might be the year for it. Turns out it looks like they're only going to sign 1, and then my guess would be try to find a quality transfer. But a lot
Danny,
of that obviously comes down to KJ's decision there.
Yeah, really.
It's back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.